I'm so much.
All right, here we
Uh,
go. Let's get this show started, guys.
yeah,
I'm excited.
let's roll.
Right. Well, happy Friday. Happy Veterans
Hey,
Day, everybody.
happy
Andrew, David,
Friday.
welcome, guys.
Happy Veterans Day. It's great. Tim, great video down by the Washington Monument today. I don't, you posted that online. That was great.
I did, man. Thanks
Veterans
for
Day.
walking with me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We walked
Awesome.
a 5K around the memorials and paid
Yep.
our respects, and just wanted to say thank you all
Nice.
the veterans serving during some of the most critical points in our history, wartime, and putting your lives in harm's way. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good. I mean, Friday, it's I know where we're at. It's a little cold and rainy. David, how's it over there in the beautiful state of Tennessee?
We had the rain overnight. The sun just broke out, so it's going to be nice. The temperature dropped. We had gone through 3 days of record highs, 79, 84. So now it's where it should be. So it'll be a beautiful day. And yeah, Veterans Day. I also saw that. I think it's next week is the 248th anniversary of the Marine Corps. So that's wow. Coming up. So
yep.
Hoorah.
Yep. Absolutely. So. And David, your son is in the Navy, right? But it's classified, right?
So. It is classified. He is in a fast attack submarine somewhere creeping around protecting us. So
yeah,
I look forward to the day that he's a veteran.
Yeah,
and out of this little phase, so that'll happen soon. A couple years,
I bet. Well, again, thank you all the veterans. Happy Friday. We're excited for this. Every second Friday of the month, we are going live. We're going live with a one specific topic that will enhance our sales efforts. And so we're excited to do that every single month, as well as answer questions that come in the chat during the talk, as well as questions that have come in prior throughout the month. And we have several questions already. So I just want to open up the floor and say, if you have a question even now in your sales effort, something that you're up against, use the chat. And as we're talking, if you have a question about something that we go over, use the chat, because the second half of the live today is going to be dedicated to answering your questions. We are in the trenches to the trenches, and we're excited. So last month we had Allison O'Brien on, which so many of you gave us feedback and sent us messages and said, oh my goodness, like she opened my eyes to how to listen better. So if you want to see her podcast, if you weren't able to make it, go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen right now and get subscribed to the Energy for Sales podcast. Turn on the notifications so that every month as the recording gets uploaded, you'll be able to see that. You'll be able to share it with your team. I've already had people telling me they're sharing Allison's around with their team, and it's literally transformational. So thank you guys for joining and helping us make this a thing. So we just felt like this was a great way to streamline real relevant stuff right to all of our sales friends. So thank you for being here with us. All right. Without further ado, and I'm going to take this down because I want you to see our guests on today. My mentor, David Oliphant. We've been together in sales. Oh, I don't know, David, you started coaching me, I think 12 years ago, maybe 10. I don't know. It feels like 20 some days. It feels like I've known you all my life other days. So goes by Papa with the kids. And he's always sporting his cats on the screen to my kids. And even though we're states apart, just part of the family in my life, and also my work life as a professional and a sales mentor that I respect and trust. And David's never lost his soul in his sales career. He brings so much soul and heart and personality and humanity to sales. So he's with us today. And then my brother, obviously you all know Andrew Hooper. We travel the DMV extensively and coach sales teams, do our podcast, Hanging with the Hoopers, together on the attitude of leadership. So he's here with us today. And what Andrew brings to the table for me strategically is always challenging me, look through the consumer lens when I'm crafting any level of messaging, whether it's video message or written word. So Andrew, David, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you say hey to everybody?
Hey. I'll jump in. hey, one of my least favorite words,
Well,
but hey,
it's
good to be
good
here.
to have you both. Yeah. Yeah. What would you say, David, when it comes to messaging? And you know what, guys? I think we probably should kick this off professionally. Aren't we supposed to kick this off professionally, David? This is a live podcast.
This is a live
I mean,
podcast.
our audience has come to expect the intro.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
You want me to do it this time?
We'll tee it up. Well, why don't you? Go ahead.
No, you do it too well.
Well, here's the deal. As soon as I do the intro, you guys jump in and share what comes to mind when you think effective sales messaging. All right. So here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to the Energy for Sales podcast. Tim Hooper and David Oliphant, your hosts, where we believe if we're not having fun in sales, you may be doing something wrong. And today joining us is my brother, also friend in sales to all of those that we coach, Andrew Hooper. So welcome him to the podcast, everybody. All right, Jared, there you go. There you go, Andrew. All right, guys, effective sales messaging. What comes to mind?
Well, David, I just have to say before you chime in, I love watching Tim switch into that announcer voice for the intro. Like, that's impressive. You just turn that on like that. It's great. But thank you for the warm welcome, guys. It's good to be back with you. David, you lead us off because you are so respected. I got to say some nice things about you, man. Like, I don't get to talk to you as much as Tim does. And every time I get on with David, there is a groundedness and a level of just wisdom that you have and you bring that's so practical. Tim, you talked about the consumer voice and messaging, but David, you really bring that. And so thank you. It's great to be on with you again, man. And kick us off with messaging because you are the godfather of this. So,
well, before my head gets way too big, thanks, Andrew. And I mean, after 100 podcasts, I think we do 100 plus podcasts. I think he does have the intro down. We've played around with it a bit, but he does have it pretty succinct. And again, messaging. I mean, you could look at his intro. It was concise. It was short. You knew where we were going. You knew why we were here, who we were. Messaging, that's about messaging. I always just take it from a perspective, and this could be a bit dangerous. I'll say that. And, we can throw stuff around. We don't all have to agree with each other all the time, but my messaging, I format my messaging on what I read, what attracts me from an inbound email to even a blog post. I've followed Seth Godin, his blog post for 15 years. And if it's short and concise, I'm gonna go read it. If I have to scroll down and it goes to 2 screens, like I'll put it away and tell myself I'm going to read it later, which I normally sometimes I do, but most of the time I don't. So in that inbox that we're hitting busy executives, busy decision makers, is the same scenario. So we're going to go through some of these points of what to do, what not to do. The key in sales, whether it's face-to-face, social media, phone call, email, how do we connect? It's connecting. We don't have our Energy for Sales backgrounds on, but connection that counts, connection that converts. You have to connect. And in this busy, frantic world of email after email, the invention and the popularity of voicemail made everyone at any level seem that they had an assistant that could screen them. It's very difficult. There's a lot of noise. So for me, it's about concise to the point, bringing the why up front, which will help you either gain buy-in for someone that's interested or push away those that are never going to be interested very quickly. So that's some high levels. Tim, I think I piqued some interest there somewhere.
I love that you said that because, and I don't want to steal the thunder of the questions. And again, for those now still join, I still see the attendance climbing. Please drop your questions as we talk in the chat. More specifically today, what questions do you have around your messaging? Let's just set the stage for a second. We hear all the time, my prospect has gone cold. It's crickets. I'm hearing nothing. I've emailed them over and over and over. If you've run into any of this, right, you're probably shaking your head. You're probably saying that's me. It's why, David, when we introduced the podcast, if we're not having fun in sales, we may be doing something wrong. And why we say that is everybody who we talk to and coach is they want to have fun. This should be fun. We're connecting with humanity. We're connecting with other human beings, and we're bringing valuable resource. We're being of value. We're creating value. So, and we can have fun with it, right? Andrew, you challenge me all the time. Like, we're in a podcast setting. This is our audience. We're all in this together. Have fun, bro. Let's have fun. Like, right? And it should be.
Yeah.
It is connection. So when we think about sales messaging, that's why we said, how do we make it more effective? I want to really focus on that word, effective.
Yeah.
And to become effective, Ryan Holiday, I love his quote. He says, you don't need a transformation in your life. You don't need a revolution. You need a small evolution. And oftentimes it's just a small tweak. A small tweak is all we need. So hopefully today we're going to go through some don'ts. We're going to start with the don'ts, because like Stephen Covey said, sometimes if we figure out what we don't want to be, we can figure out what we do want to be. So, or who we want to become. So in our messaging, what shouldn't we do? And then what are some best practices? So we'll go through these and have some fun here. So let's just start. Let's jump in.
Well,
Andrew,
wait.
something to say?
Time out. Yeah, we didn't let Andrew give a high level messaging.
Well,
spiel.
I wanted to kind of go into that piece because, and Tim, you're so right on, like, you said it in regards to our podcast, but just having a conversation. The biggest thing for messaging, what resonates with people is just the authenticity. I would say in some sense you could kind of dumb it down and say the down to earthness of, I just made a word up, which is fine because it's a podcast, we can do that. But if you're down to earth and authentic in your messaging, that's super critical, I think. And then David, it's what I talk to everybody about when we talk about social media and getting on video and doing these things, and messaging that you're doing is not trying to be someone else, but like create stuff that you like to consume. So often I think in messaging, we're consumers, we're the ultimate consumer. And then we're out there trying to talk about something that we would not even resonate with if we were on the receiving end of it, if that makes sense. So that's where you have to start is, when you're consuming, are you kind of critical thinking in the sense of what is jumping out to me? And then what are some ways I could take that? And this could be anything, right? From a commercial to a TikTok video to anything, but what is jumping out to me? And can I take that and make it in that format for my messaging and go from there? So that's kind of the authenticity and make stuff you like to consume. Start there.
Yeah. And one of the things, Andrew, I'm glad you
Huge.
circled back around to that. I had mentioned prior that my route of creating messaging similar to what I like to intake can be a bit dangerous because not everybody's like me. Thank goodness. Boy, that'd be a wacky kind of world. So I know we're going to touch upon later persona-based messaging and campaigns and things like that, which really speaks to those people. So, I'm very much in a B2B world. I have been C-level. So, just know your audience, I think is important because me saying that it might be dangerous for just creating things the way I like to consume it. We learned from Allison over the period, last podcast. And then at the summit, there are 4 distinct listing styles, and everyone is a combination of those. And so, everyone's different. But a lot of what we're going to talk about should bode well across all of the 43 different listing styles that come out of those 4 main types of listeners. So
I agree with you on that. Yeah. I think you said it because some people want the more technical up front versus the emotional up front, right? Some of those different ways that we receive info. But what we will cover today is really just, again, from the trenches to the trenches, right? So it's areas where all 3 of us have stubbed our toes in across the masses and kind of what works well, especially when it comes to your individual marketing and sales for your business. So, yeah.
I love that you went there, Andrew, and about what you love to consume. That's just, when you said that, I thought about read your message back to yourself. One time I just sent myself a message and then I sat on it for 24 hours and came back to it. And in 24 hours, I was just like, because in the moment he's, is there, but just really read it from the lens of, do I like to read what I just put out there? And to David's point, you can know your audience. You can craft a message to suit them. And really what it is not masking who you are. It's being true to your voice, but catering to how they want to be spoken to and how they, how they listen. So, high level versus analytical versus you can cater, but don't lose your voice. So don't change who you are. So I love that you said that, Andrew. Create what you like to consume.
It's kind of organization of what you want to say. It's all good stuff. But if you're messaging, especially in marketing, if you're not bringing them in within the first couple of seconds or of what you're trying to say. So it's just what you're saying, I think, Tim, is just organize. Like, it's not changing who you are. It's just organizing what you're sharing in a way that is going to be received optimally, right? Like, what's the optimal way that's going to be received?
We won't get into this specific strategy today, but if you have a lot of analytical data to share, or you're passing it through an email and you think the person you're sending it to might be more of a high level, a D personality, they just want the bullet points, then there's a way to craft the message in, hey, David, I've included the bullet points here. And if you want the detailed breakdown, it's in a PDF attached or further below this message. So you can say that, and it builds incredible trust, but you have to know your audience, but stay true to yourself. I think sometimes if we start nitpicking ourselves, should I say this word or that word? Just ask yourself, would I say that word? Would I say that word to somebody? If you do, be yourself. That's why I still say, hey, in an email even, hey, David, hey, Andrew, because that's me. I say, hey, all the time. We've all heard hay's for horses. I don't care. That's me. But the metrics, the framework of the message, I don't need to ramble for 3 paragraphs. So let's just jump in. Don't. And by the way, everybody listening, everybody watching, and if you care to reach out to us in the channel, in the comments on the channel, if you're watching this later, we just drop your email. We will get this handout to you. But everybody here today will receive all of these don'ts and do's in a handout. Okay, but let's run through these real quick. So number 1, don't make the email or the text or the direct message on social media too long. With run-on sentences or too many paragraphs, okay? So let's just break that down. What is that? Stay concise, right? But just don't run on. Andrew, you have some examples of this, I'm sure. David, we all get those, mile-long emails. Yeah. I've never gone wrong with too short. Have you ever gone wrong with too short?
No. And here's what I think the reason a lot of in our minds why we run on long is, and David, I would love your thoughts on this, but this is my perspective. I feel like we are trying to answer every potential question they might have about why we're reaching out in our product or our service right off the bat in that first message. So it turns into this just like dump of stuff in an email. And I got one the other day from a guy, and it's from a learning platform, like, because I have a weird title with Fidelity, right? So my title with Fidelity is like training coordinator, right? So I have all these L&D platforms reaching out to me on LinkedIn. They get my email and they're dinging me with all these messages. And I have yet to receive a message that made me want to respond. And they have come from some top names that I knew when I worked at JP Morgan. Like,
mic drop.
Some of these people coming from top names, and probably they're just running it through like an AI sequence. And it's a numbers game for them, but we're not in a business like that. Most of us, we're in a very relationship-based business, but they're trying to answer it. They're trying to suggest 10 different things in that first message that I might be dealing with, instead of just speaking right to the heart of what they're trying to say. And I think for me, that's why messages run on long initially. You feel like you have to answer everything.
I think it gets even uglier. I think people go right into selling mode. Like, you're not connecting. You're not intrigued. There's no intrigue. There's no wanting to learn anything. I'm going to sell you something, and you don't even know if they're in the appetite to buy. So I think that's really where that comes from. I've seen it a lot in marketing wants to tell in an email, in a communication, the entire story. And we'll get into some of these, but it's a lot of I, we, us. And buried way down deep in paragraph 8 is the why. And so I would just take that stuff and just flip it to the top. But I think that's it. I think that we can't help ourselves at time, and we're just in sales mode. So let's tell them everything.
We're gonna get down to, because I want to dig deeper on the don't bury the lead. But in the bulk of the email, when we're carrying on too long, oftentimes that leads us to another don't use too many words in a line or paragraph. If your lines or paragraph are too wordy, and listen, some of us majored in English. Some of us are great at the semicolon and the the 13-cylinder, sentence. Dumb it down. It doesn't need to be that long. If they have to really struggle or really read, they're trying to read like the Iliad here and really get the context of like what's being said in the sentence. It's too much. Shorten up your sentences, make them more concise. So don't use too many words in the line or the paragraph. And this also brings me to another thought, especially when you're talking prospecting. Okay. This may be like, if you're down the road and you're onboarding somebody and there's technical and you're with the engineer and they want all the technicalities, certainly paragraphs and certainly bullet points and links and all that. But when you're reaching out to a prospect, try not to even use paragraphs. I like a couple lines, and each line is like a sentence or two. But try to steer away from what is a paragraph in English, like 3 sentences or more. Try to steer away from that. It clumps the text too much on the screen, and most people consume on their mobile too. And it starts to really, you got to start scrolling. It's just too much. If they can easily consume it in 3 bytes, best. Right. So just not too many words. David, what would you add?
I think you hurt yourself at the beginning of a potential relationship that way, because if I'm reading, it's like, wow, if that person writes that much, can you imagine what a phone conversation is going to be like? How do I ever get a word in edgewise? So you're starting to set the tone at the beginning. Like, okay, there's some information, there's some data. When you get into these long explanations, that's what conversations are for. That's really not what email, but you can stub your toe pretty handily by writing too much, because I'm going to think, oh gosh, if I get on the phone with this guy, if I get on the phone with Tim, I better have an hour.
Yeah. Well, and I apply that, like we're talking about a text or a DM too. And I don't know if we're going to get to it, but like even verbally, when you're first reaching out, this can apply for that first phone call. I've done it back way when, like you feel like you're just like, ugh, right? Like everything, you're trying to explain everything because there's some silence, there's some awkward silence. So we're trying to explain
like the world's
going to
end. The world's going to end in 3 minutes, and you got to get it all out at once.
That's right. I mean,
come on.
I mean, so think about that from a verbal standpoint too. We're trying to reach out and move something forward. Like keep it about that, and why someone should move that forward with you. So simple.
I love that, guys. And so here we go. Sometimes the reason we put so much in the message is it leads us to the next don't make the audience too large, especially if you're requesting information. So, and David, you've got a great reminder for us in this one for sure, but sometimes I think we're speaking too broadly. And even when we're reaching out prospecting, we think maybe our mass drip is the message to the prospect. I tell people this all the time. If you have a mass strip that goes out and you think that it's specific to a certain prospect in your sequence, then take that email and go reply to that person and say, hey, David, I sent the below message out, but you and I had that discussion, or I saw on your website, or somebody on your team, and I thought that this specific thing could apply. Would you be, game to unpack this in, the next couple of weeks on a brief phone call or learn more? It's drawing it down to the very, very person you're speaking with. And then sometimes in a larger complex sell, maybe you're selling into a team. We speak to the entire team in a message, as opposed to, again, narrowing it down to a specific person. So be very, very careful. Don't make the audience too large when you're prospecting. Guys, what would you add there?
Go ahead,
I think the adage of, if you have a large audience and you want to, especially if you have an ask, what's everybody's job is nobody's job. So if I'm sitting there and if I'm copied on an email in the main line, and Tim's on there, I'm gonna just hang back and let Tim answer.
Yeah.
I mean, so being very specific. Now, if you're speaking to a group and you're emailing a group and you do need an answer and you have a pretty good idea as to who that could be, then you can give a global message, but then Tim, blah, 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 whatever that ask is.
Yeah.
So that's my thinking there. if you're in a corporate environment, sometimes these email messages are just like there's 800 people on there, nobody's answering anything. It just keeps going. I came up in a world where in business where 3 emails like back and forth and back that begot a phone call. Like stop, let's stop all that. So, again, you don't see that a lot in messaging. I mean, in prospecting messaging. I know we want to talk a bit about that, but there's some good questions on, once you're in a conversation or in a dialogue, around going silent, stuff like that. We'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah,
that's great.
That's great. And David, I would, to your point there, kind of calling out specific people, if you are working with a group, it's kind of directive of asking questions in that messaging specifically to the group. And it goes, again, I keep taking it back to in person too, because if you're on here, you're like, well, that's great in an email, I can call people out. But even if you're in a meeting, if you're in the boardroom, you're talking to a group of people who run a business you're trying to work with, kind of identifying around the table who is responsible for what in that meeting. And then your messaging there is be very specific in calling out and understanding who the go forwards lie with for the next step, right? Is it you need to do X with the operations person, you need to do X with the salesperson, the CEO needs to get this X report to you, whatever it might be. You can also kind of with messaging just narrow it down. I think it's a huge credibility builder when you're in a meeting and you have the clarity to be able to do that coming out of a meeting as well. So if it's a follow-up messaging or it's an in meeting, like we're prospecting, we're trying to get a sale, like be specific with who's doing what.
That's great. And two quick side notes. Number one, if you have if you're talking to one person or messaging one person, you finally get through and they pass you to somebody else, don't assume that everything you've messaged to this first person was conveyed to that second person. Sometimes you're going to need to back up a little bit, pump the brakes. This is where we say sell slow to close fast. You need to not take for granted that this person who was just introduced onto the thread. And then if somebody higher up in the organization passes you to somebody else, it's very cordial to when you reply to this person, hey, Sue, I would love to get on a Zoom with you, kind of catch you up to speed with what David and I just talked about. And see, I would love to get your thoughts on it. Don't make it like you're forcing it down her throat because David, the CEO, handed you off to Sue. But then I think professionally too, David, thank you so much for the tee up. I'm moving you to BCC and then move David to BCC unless he's asked to stay in the loop. Because I think too often then you leave a CEO on this, all the back and forth on coordinating the Zoom. I see that all the time. And that actually drives them nuts because they handed you off to someone. So be very thoughtful as far as keep the audience narrowed down. And then when you have now established value, because we're in prospecting right now, remember, when we've established value and Sue decides, yes, I'm going to get David back involved, pull our CFO in, that's when now we can reestablish that. But go talk to the person, be specific with the person that is the decision maker. So,
and Tim, I think more than just driving them crazy, it can drive them away. It's like, doesn't this guy understand that I have handed him off and I'm copied on 10 emails back and forth? It's like, I don't even want to do business with this person anymore. Like they're not listening. They're not paying attention.
And what's the Cook rule, Tim?
If I don't know, I ask.
That's right. The Cook rule. So if you're not sure if the person is handing you off, then ask, hey, do you want to be included on the back and forth here, or am I okay to remove you? I don't want to put extra emails in your inbox. There's nothing wrong with asking that when you're getting to a stage. And I think sometimes we overthink and stress about the very simple things we could just ask about, and it would be no harm, no foul. Hey, and it's a respect thing. It's a respect play. Too, because you're clarifying. A clarifying question is great.
I love the respect thing. And that's, Andrew, that brings me to my second point real quick, because this is huge. When we get crickets, when we're up against crickets, when we're up against a prospect going quiet or not responding, it may be that we picked the wrong person to talk to. So go do some more research, go to LinkedIn, go look at some other heads of the organization and reach out. And here's how I would do it, Andrew, back to your point of respecting people, is if I've been reaching out to David in my sequence and he's 4 or 5 messages in with no response, and I decide I'm going to now ping Andrew, I may say, hey, Andrew, I've been trying to get in touch with David, and I was wondering if this, if you're experiencing this, because I'm always the pain point first. If you're experiencing this, would you be the person to speak with? Man, when you can correlate that you've been trying to get in touch with somebody, I've had people reach out to me more empathetically, especially I've tried this with like salespeople too, right? It's like, because they're in sales, we're in sales, right? It's like, oh yeah, no, David's busy, he's traveling, all this, whatever. And then, hey, who owns his calendar? Oh, that's his executive assistant, Sue. Or, okay, cool. And then I've been able to get help in I call it the back door, but you didn't sneak in the back door. You didn't go with Andrew, promise all this stuff, and then could you introduce me to David? And then David's like, yeah, that guy's been reaching out. I don't want to talk to him. So you're very upfront, always honest. I was trying to reach out to David. Maybe you're the person. So that's where, again, seeking to understand who that decision maker is and keeping specific with people and then establishing that respect. So hopefully these little mechanics, help us think through maybe some of the messaging we're doing. Pick somebody else and then try to drill down. What do we say, David? Go wide. You got to go deep at some point, but to get into to penetrate an account, oftentimes we need to go wide. And sometimes we're just drilling one person who's really not the decision maker on it or doesn't want to be, pinged on it. So
on that note, most of all the campaigns that we run, we will do in our last email, an email, around, reach out a few times. Maybe it's not the right time, or maybe you're not the right person. If you could introduce me. So there is a way at the end. I'm also a big proponent that if I'm chasing Tim, and when I decide to stop chasing Tim, I might put him in a nurture, maybe touch him once a month, once a quarter, whatever. But when I'm actively not prospecting him, I'm going to let him know that. Yeah, I'm going to let him know that I'm done. My contact information is there.
Yeah, give us a line. Give us like a line that you would use. Just how would you word that?
Tim, sorry we haven't connected over numerous attempts. Maybe now is not the right time for this solution, or you're not the right stakeholder internally. If you're not the right stakeholder and you can introduce me to that person, please let me know. I would appreciate it.
Yeah. I like that. I think also you could simply,
and then my contact information is below. If and a lot of times you'll find, I am interested. It's just the timing. In an inbound scenario, we've even used some fun, talk about having fun in sales. Someone that has reached out that wants to know about a certain solution. We've not been able to reach them. We hit them really hard, 13 touches in 2 weeks. You might think, wow, that's a lot, but they entered the octagon. They wanted to start the fight. So we owe it to connect with them. The 13th touches, have you been abducted by aliens? Have you been abducted by aliens? And like, yes, I have been. Please send help. No, I haven't. I'm just super busy. Please reach back out to me. Or number 3, I'm not interested. So giving them that out. So again, but I do think that if I have aggressively prospected you, Andrew, that when I am done with that, I'll let you know. And if you could pass me on to someone, or you can, here's my contact information if you need our solutions, services, help in the future.
That's great.
On the next.
And sometimes the fear, sometimes the you've intrigued them. And sometimes we've taken their silence as rejection. I love what Jeff Bajorek says. It's not rejection. We just haven't gotten their attention yet. And so sometimes the taking it off the table, or, hey, I'm going to stop reaching out at this point. Doesn't seem like our solution has resonated. When you say that, that's when oftentimes it's like, oh, no, I don't want to lose this person. I've really enjoyed what you've sent out. They just haven't responded yet. So David, great, right?
The one, Tim, can I chime in on that? And
go for it.
So on the one thing I just, this is more of like how I receive those, because I've received some of those types of emails from people who tried to reach out a bunch and they didn't have good messaging. There was no clear value. It was just rambles. I didn't have time to read the emails. And then after their sequence ended, they were like, it seems like you're just not interested at this time. So I think you also have to be very careful with your tone in those types of emails, because you can come across as like holier than thou, or kind of, just snotty, I guess would be a good word, if you're not very careful with how you're letting them know that. It's like, listen, would welcome the opportunity to connect. I would use some very nice, just direct would still love to connect. Seems like it may not be the best time for you, or if there's someone else who makes a decision, please do let me know. Yep. And, you know, I'll touch base periodically, kind of type deal.
Andrew, thank you for saying that. I think it goes back to what we say, right? Lead with empathy. They're busy. They don't care yet. And it is not their job to care. And so when it's like, I've been reaching out, apparently this doesn't, you know, you've not, I've had the ones, Andrew, where it's like, apparently you don't value, well,
yeah, to me, that's rude. Like, you're being rude. You've never met the person. Yeah. You never earned the right to have a conversation. And now you're being rude because they didn't respond to your emails. And half the time you're not even doing anything but clicking a button in a CRM to run a sequence that sends this automated email blast. So it's, you know, there's just, again, are you differentiating yourself in those types of reach outs when you are in the prospecting mode for messaging? And that could be, we talk about all the time, Tim, that could be video, that could be other ways to really articulate and have a better message approach than just an email, even if your email is clear, concise, and to the point.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that. Again, we mentioned the word sequence. We do a whole nother training, probably in another month, we will do a whole sequence training on one of these. But a sequence is all about omni-channel. So if you've been pounding with email, it might be the time before you take it off the table and let them know you're done prospecting. You may need to be honest with yourself and take inventory. How have you changed it up? Have you tried a DM on social media? Have you tried picking up the phone? Have you tried using a video email? These things shake things up. And I think people are kind of tired of being spammed in an email sequence. I do. I don't respond to email sequences. It's a bombardment. I don't like it. So if you're not looking right now, especially going into 2024, about changing up your sequencing to be omni-channel, you're missing the boat. You will miss the boat. The companies who do will stand out in a new human way. So which leads us to our next couple of don'ts here. Don't overuse emoticons and hashtags unless you know your entire audience very well. We don't have to belabor this point. I'm not against emoticons at all. I like them, especially nowadays when I'm mobile first. I respond to a lot of stuff on my phone. I'm on the go a lot. I do have my in-office days where I'm on my laptop, but if I'm on my phone, man, I try to use an emoji or two. And even if it's somebody I'm just freshly connecting with, a fist bump, there's plenty of appropriate emojis. Some people like emojis in their subject lines. We'll talk about subject lines here soon. I don't use them in subject lines. Just again, I'm not in that. I mean, I'm not selling widgets. I'm selling service. I don't know. It's up to you, really. But again, David, it's really, you got to know your audience, I think, with the
Can you even put
emoticons.
an emoji in the subject line? I've never attempted that.
Yeah. Some people do. I get those emails with emojis. I don't mind. I've never minded a subject line with emojis, but I feel like sometimes people overuse them in a subject line. But just be careful not to. Don't overuse emoticons. And then, hashtags, I mean, you can have fun. Hashtags aren't as big as they used to be, but I will say that for me, sometimes if it's something they said in our first conversation, or maybe something on their website I saw, I'm kind of more of the visionary. So for me, I like when there's like a hashtag moment in something. So sometimes I'll put like Big Hoop Rocks or something, because I saw Andrew's Big Hoop on Instagram or something. So Big Hoop Rocks, or Big Hoop to the next level hashtag. So I'm more making it like intriguing, because people like to hear their name or hear about themselves. So if I'm going to do a hashtag, it is not going to be my hashtag or my company's hashtag. It's going to be something about you. It's going to be something about your vision that you share with me, or I saw some. But anyway, that's just, again, a personal preference. Just be careful with emoticons and hashtags. I think we're good there. Unless you guys want to chime in, I wanted to move on to the AI piece as well.
No, that's cool. Segue over. I am personally a big exclamation point, but don't overuse that. I've also heard, and I don't think we had this on the list. They say that you shouldn't thank someone twice, like thanking them at the beginning of the email and then thanking them again. I disagree with that. I think there are places for that, but that's been a practice.
Oh, like a thanks again, thank you, or thanks again.
Like, okay, stop already.
Yeah.
I say that naturally, like when I'm in conversations. So I wouldn't say that that's overused if that's how you flow.
Yeah. If it's how you flow, I think that's really the filter that you would put on that, right? Is read it back as if you were receiving it. And if it seems just like fluff that doesn't mean anything, remove it. You're better off just being, again, too many times we try to act like we have a relationship with somebody in our initial reach outs and our messaging, and we actually don't. And so we have to speak something that actually matters to them. And so that means being direct and to the point. And then from there, we can build a relationship. And I don't know when we're going to talk about platitudes, Tim, but that's also a big piece of this is
right.
Overusing platitudes or just how you kind of structure your email with that. But I'm good jumping into AI a little bit because I think we're all getting in this world where we can hop over on Chat GPT and easily come up with 100 different scripts to reach out to people. So, I mean, you want to jump into that piece a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm going to tee it up, but Andrew, you take this one, but don't lose your humanity if you're utilizing AI. And yes, you're right. We've seen people say, I'm not that creative. So I've gone to Chat GPT and said, give me, 10 creative ways to reach out to a prospect who's not responding about this solution. You can pretty specific and it'll give you some great ideas, I believe. The problem is I've seen some people take copy and paste or, hey, write me a script. And then they copy and paste and you feel AI'd right off the bat. And again, David said it, your first message sets the entire tone. So Andrew, jump in here because this is your bailiwick.
Well, I mean, we've been talking a lot about AI, but there are uses for it with your sales scripts, and I'll describe what I feel that is, and what I believe that is. But Tim, you hit the nail on the head. There are too many people going in saying, "Give me a script to reach out to this, that, and another." So here's where AI can be helpful with your scripts. So one, just write out very simply what you want to say. Okay, just write that out in your own words, what you want to say. And if you feel like, oh, that's not good, great. Now go use that in AI. Go copy that into your AI and say, Chat GPT, write this in a way that's a little more direct, or put a tone on it that's a little more this or that. That's how you use it. But tell it not to lose the essence of the message. Keep it the same length, keep it short, to the point, and value added. And you can the other piece with AI is give it context about your audience. I'm reaching out to I'll just use our industry, Tim, and title, right? So I'm reaching out to a realtor, a top producing realtor who does 35 deals a year, apparently very busy. They focus on the affluent market. This is my message. Can you tailor this a little bit to be, to the point and value add for that type of a person? So if you give it some context there, it can help you, but you need to write the message first. Don't go tell it to write a message for you because it's just going to spit up something that's very AI'd. And then people feel that because it's not really who you are. So that's my one, I guess, caution with using AI for sales scripts. And I'm not necessarily talking about nurture campaigns. So I know there might be some people listening to this that you're doing lead funnels and nurture campaigns that are all automated with email. And so there's a time and place for that depending on your type of consumer. But I know, Tim, in the type of stuff we do, there are limited clients. We are not appealing to the hundreds of millions of Americans in our industries, and David, yours as well. You're appealing to a very niche group of people. And so if be very careful about kind of dumping them into a automated nurture sequence that is just trying to do kind of the hard work for you of making the phone call, having the conversation, reaching out and setting the visit, because I see too many people looking for an easy button. There's a place for it, but I don't think in our industry, I think we should shy away from it a little bit and keep it authentic to who we are.
Yeah.
So.
Agreed. Great coverage on the AI piece. Again, it's there. It's useful. In fact, some of our CRMs are already incorporating it, pulling it in. Some of our inboxes, some of the, you can tab over and it'll give you your words. Be careful, because once you see something out here that it generated, that's hard to get that out of your head. And the thing is, you want to be your authentic voice. So, yeah, just thank you. That's great. Let's jump into the do's. So we spent some time on the don'ts. We kind of bridged into some do's on just because they segued. So let's just run through these pretty briefly. And again, this will be on the handout. So do use an intriguing subject line centered on the reason for the email. And this is critical. And also in that subject line, shorten it to 3 to 5 words if you can. 3 is a stretch. That's sometimes hard to do. 5 needs to really be kind of the main crux, like no more than 5. And if you do tail on, you just expect it not to be read, because a lot of times they're not reading past those 5 words. So think about in the first 5 words, do you capture what they need to know? Do you capture what they need to know in the first 5 words of your subject line? Again, centered on the reason for the email. Andrew and David, you're really big about asking a question in the subject line. You taught me that years ago.
Yeah, I like to, again, brevity, whether it's something around the government compliance or, are you compliant with X ? Have you ever faced something? Again, it's going to fall into the type of conversation you want to have to see if they might be of interest and be a potential, future client for you. But I like question marks as well. It makes them think back. Like, again, it's all about listening. It's all about questioning. It's all about asking the right type of questions. But if I'm just talking, but if I get started with a question, it's like, that's intriguing. Have you ever thought about X, whatever that might be? Do you ever get stuck with Y?
Yeah. I love the question. I think, again, to gear this talk today down to prospecting, new business. I always say nothing happens in a service heavy industry that I'm in. Nothing happens till I sit down with somebody. And now I sit down virtually all the time. So a question I use all the time in my prospecting, and it is super successful. 30-minute Zoom, brief call, question mark, and then in the email, David, do you have, and I start right away with it. So again, just think about, like, in the subject line, just kind of ditch the, I got to make this so perfect headline, New York Times, whatever. No, just who's the person you're talking to and what are you actually asking? And sometimes just putting that ask in 3 to 5 words with a question mark, powerful, because you just asked, the first thing they saw was your question, what you're getting at. Super respectful, especially the higher up an organization you go. So would you add anything on the subject line piece, Andrew?
No, I mean, the question is good, but I also think you should be clear about your intention, right? And so in our industry, I think it's always a good idea to put, if your intention is to schedule a brief visit, then put that in subject line too, right? Looking for a brief fit. Like, I think that's what you should do. So being clear about your intention, David, you're with that question. I think you're being clear to what you're trying to get at, but then we have to make sure. And the next to do, Tim, I think, is kind of be very clear with right to the point, right? Like, we got to get right to the point in the email of why we're there. And that, to me, that means we don't go, dear David, hope you're having a wonderful blah, 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 blah. And so this is something I've been really hitting on lately. And if you're doing this in your emails, try this, trust me, try this in your, not just your emails for messaging, but in your texts to people and even with people very well. Take the platitude where we normally I'm texting Tim, I'm texting you for something, or David, I'm texting you because I need to get a document from you or something like that. So I have a very specific ask. And with sales, we have a very specific ask. So go in with your ask and why I need that or why I'm doing that. Don't start with the platitude. So, and I get sometimes people look at me like very shocked, like you wouldn't say, hey, I hope everything's going well. I trust you're good. I hope the family's great. Right. No, take that out of there. It's disingenuous, right?
When I see that, it's like, what does he want? Like,
right.
What's he want? Like, just get to it. You can, your point, the platitude at the end, you can thank me later. Okay, what's Andrew want from me? Just ask.
Yes.
So do move your platitudes to the end, guys. And Andrew, something you taught me a long time ago was, bro, when you say that up front, everyone's already thinking, okay, what does this person
what do you want?
And then you finally ask what you want. Then it's like, okay, that's really why they were reaching out.
Exactly.
So I would rather just cut the platitudes. It almost in my mind say, I don't need them. Ask your question, get to the point. And then at the end, if you still feel like you need them, then throw in there, hey, by the way, saw the boating pics on Facebook. It looks like a great time with your family. Hope you had a great whatever. Or whatever you're going to say for a platitude, say it at the end, because then it's more genuine. Because you really have to think then, do I need this? A lot of times we're scared, and in our fear, we're typing a platitude because we're afraid to get to the point. Does that make sense?
It's almost like a unconscious softening of the blow. Yep. It's like if I give them a nice platitude, it's going to make them feel better about the ask that I have next. So,
and it actually does the opposite.
It does the opposite.
And it absolutely does the opposite.
Chat GPT will deliver back, because I've leveraged it quite a bit on persona-based email templates, sequences. Like, I will ask it for a 4 email sequence to a CFO for this, and it will come back. Dear Andrew, I hope you are well. Like, do you really? No, I hope you will buy from me. I mean, if we're going to be honest, let's just start there.
Yeah. It's like why do we think that? Yeah.
I hope I hope you're well. which I would
love it.
normally use. I like to use the word trust because hope is not a strategy. I trust. Yeah, I might put that somewhere, but yeah, good old Chatty. She'll bring it back every time.
I used to have a
She's
friend
trying
who would
too
write,
hard to be. She's
yeah,
trying
it's
too
trying
hard.
too
to be
hard.
It's
I
trying too hard to be.
It is. I had a friend one time, he would start every email by saying, I trust that this email finds you in the best of health and spirits, right? And to me, it's just cheesy. And it's not, and in today's world of authenticity and again, your messaging, it's not so much of is that a professional thing to do or not, guys? It's about cutting through the noise of what everyone else is doing. So as soon as you're different, you'll catch attention, right? And that's key here. But all the stuff we're talking about messaging here is so you can stand out of all the garbage junk marketing or even legitimate marketing that people are doing, but they're just following these old, whatever you want to call recipes or AI sequences that are out there. So kind of switching that up helps you cut right to the top of the inbox.
Hey, Tim, talking about cutting right to it. We had some questions. We had a lot of lists of stuff. I think we've got 11 more minutes. Do we want to answer some of these questions, or where do you want to go?
Yeah, we're gonna run a little. We're gonna shorten this up a little bit from our hour and a half, but we'll run a little past 2:30 is fine. And we do have some questions, so I think that we can absolutely send the handout to everybody. But before we end this segment, let me just again do shorten that subject line, right? Do use 5 words max. Get right to the point. Move that platitude to the end. Don't bury your lead. Move the reason up to the top. Single sentence, like we talked about, are better. 3, just get to the point. And then also, let's talk about this. Ask, does my message pass the so what or who cares test? When you're done, let's ask ourselves that question. Does this message pass the so what? They say so what or who cares? Would it pass that?
And I think you guys with that, it's like every sentence, every word. I would like to set up a meeting with you. I bet you would. I trust you're well. So
okay. Yeah.
It's look at it. It's like for the reader, like so what? Like words matter. Less words matter, but each word matters. So definitely that's a filter. And Tim, I use that extensively. When you look at stuff like so what? Does it
so
really
what?
matter?
So what? It's the so what test. Apply it. And the other thing I share in trainings a lot is, and I'll share it here for edification. Don't ask why didn't they open my email? Ask why would they open and read my email?
It's good.
Like why would they? And if
because
you
you're
can't
big
answer that,
you're big hoop.
I know I'm endearing, David, but you got to get to know me first. I'm an acquired taste.
That's good.
Yes, you are.
Instead, I'm going to drop this in the chat, but instead of asking why didn't they respond to my message, ask why would they respond, and be honest with yourself. And it really does come down to, again, those things that we said, being brief and all that. I like what, in addition to thinking about what made you want to respond or what you liked, think about what you didn't like in an email or text, and don't do that. Cheryl, great stuff. I just want to say that here on the air. Real quick as well, as we're wrapping this up. I think that we need to add value in some way. Think about that. Again, it's why would they open my email? Think that. It always revolves around value. Are you putting something into that email that they value? Not that you value, you're trying to over push or oversell, that they value. Are you really addressing their pain point? What matters to them? Because that's what they value. So we always, David, what is it? AAV. That was a huge hashtag on our bullpen wall. AAV. Always add value with every message. Andrew, go ahead.
If you're only reaching out so that you can talk about you, that is not valuable to them, right? So to your point, Tim, about adding value, we have to ask ourselves, and I was coaching a person one-on-one recently, and I was helping them with a script in an email, and it said, hey, David, saw what you're doing. I saw your article in this magazine. I thought it was amazing. Are you game to grab a brief coffee in the next week or two? I have a couple ideas I'd love to run by you, how we could collaborate. And the person stopped me and said, wait. I don't have any ideas. Ding, ding, ding. If you don't have any ideas or anything that you're bringing to add value to them, then you got to go back and start with that before you can have effective messaging, because your effective messaging has to always be centered all around what you can do for them, especially to pique interest. It's not about how great you are, what your brand is great at, or we're the leading this and that, or we're the best out here. No one cares until no one cares. And the other thing, we can't say we're the best. And if you're on here and you're someone who says you're the best, you need to knock that off, because your clients can tell you you're the best. You can't say that. You have to earn that every day, all the time, every time. So you might be confident. I'm not saying don't have a good confidence around your brand or confidence around your business, but we hear it all the time. We have to let our clients tell us we're good. We can't just go out there and expect that we can have that as our messaging and win consistently, because it turns people off.
Yeah, humble people won't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Humility.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're showing humility, you're not going to do that at all.
Yeah.
That I love that, Andrew. Only they get to anoint us the best, and that's only after having tested us, not just trusted us. So they really we can't even be there in our tone. We need to be there, hungry, humble, hardest working, like The Rock says.
Earn it.
And that is all about seeking out what matters to them. Now we're gonna end with this. Call to action. I know we talked about the subject line with a question mark, call to action. We talked about maybe putting that call to action up higher, first line. I love starting the first line, then going into why I reached out and why I think the call to action matters. But I like letting people know, like, this is what I'm asking right off the bat. Now, call to action, you have to do that in just anything anymore. Social media content, anything, but we're talking about prospecting here. So include a call to action or a next step. And even if there's not a specific call to action, maybe you have a recommended next step, then ask it in some sort of call to action way. So Andrew, would it be too much to ask in the next couple of weeks that we schedule 30-minute Zoom call? Question mark. I have a few ideas that I think would matter to your business, and specifically what I saw you guys are up to here. So again, call to action. Okay. And then if you're leaving a voicemail, so one of your go ahead, Andrew.
Can I break that down real quick, Tim?
Yeah.
Real quick, because I don't know if people caught this, but your question you used is so critical here. Would it be too much to ask? When you can get into a mode where you're asking questions that in order to move forward, the person needs to say no to, psychologically, would it be too much to ask that we grab a coffee in the coming weeks? Have a couple ideas. To that question, would it be too much to ask? No, it wouldn't be. Right? It's not too much to ask. Would it be too heavy of a lift to do XYZ? Right? Or would it be ridiculous to think that we could do this? Ask more questions that get a no answer to move forward. Because then if they have to respond, yes, it would be too much to ask, they're going to give you an explanation why, and most probably going to tell you when it might work better. So I just wanted to call that out, because you kind of just went quick over that question.
Yeah, that's
ask
good.
those questions that need a no response.
That's really good. Again, with the question, with whatever's next, if it's, again, we're talking prospecting, so I want to keep focused right here. Be clear with the call to action. If the sequence that you're on is a phone call and you use a voicemail, David, what should we do after? We should leave the voicemail, very brief with a call to action. But it's always, you taught me a long time ago, let them know in the voicemail. I'll shoot you an email recapping this, and there my phone number's in there, my information's there. That way you're not on the voicemail. My name is Tim. My number is 800. No, no one's writing it down anymore. Send the email, and then the subject line we always put per my voicemail. And so and then you would recap. Would you recap the call to action in the email?
Well, I'm always a big fan that, you hear salespeople all the time. Oh man, I made 100 calls. I didn't get a call back. I don't ever expect a call back, because I'm going to own what's next. I'm going to let them know. Also, my intro on the voicemail is the same 5-second intro as if Andrew talked, if he picked up the phone, because that way I've seen too often you leave like all these voicemails. Somebody answers, you don't even know what to do. So it's Andrew, David with energy for sales. I'll be brief. The reason for my call is X. That way, if they answer, I can still go into that. But, to your question, I will at times on the voicemail point them to a day that I sent them an email, so they have my information. I will let them know I will expect an email next week, or expect another phone call from me. If you need to reach me, my phone number is in the email I sent on the 13th. I don't, so I'm not defeated at the end of the day. Like Like, wow, I left 100 voicemail messages. I didn't get a call back. Well, I don't expect one. I don't expect one. And I'm going to let them know. And I'm also going to make it easy. Like, ooh, he did send that. What date? Well, I just told him it was on the 13th. So, that's how I liked it. That's why I did. One action sets up the next one. What to expect next.
Yeah.
Expect a voice, or even in an intro email, expect a phone call from me in the next week. Now, if you can get super tight of the date and time, because then you're a person of your word. Like Andrew said, he was going to call me on Tuesday.
It's also
I'll be
easier.
darned, he called me on Tuesday.
And it's also easier to get out of your own head in a week when you know you promised somebody you're going to call them. And then all of a sudden your time block shows up and you're like, nope, I promised 10 people in the email last week I was going to call them. So now your sequence is just, you're just obeying your sequence.
Yeah.
Andrew, what would you, I mean, so much packed in here.
Just expectations that David mentioned. Too many salespeople get jaded and get kind of upset because someone doesn't respond or they're not calling them back. So if you go into it with no expectations, you're just happy, right? Yeah. And part of having fun in sales is being happy. So if they call you back, woo! But if not, no big deal, right? Because I'm going to keep working it until I get the response. And then a funny story, as you guys were talking about someone calling you when they said they would. I had a good buddy of mine up in Pennsylvania who I worked with at Chase. He introduced me to somebody who does recently, just last week, somebody who supplies title companies with stuff like supplies, right? And he thought it'd be a good connection for me. And so it's on LinkedIn. I respect the guy. So I was like, cool. And the guy's like, can we meet? I said, call me. Could you call me? I have some windshield time this time. And he said, sure, I'll call you. I'm driving, time rolls around. He never calls. Well, 3 days later, I got a voicemail. Oh, I can't believe I missed it. I'm so sorry. And, I probably will still connect with him at some point. But right, like to David's point, if you give a time, honor your time, because he hurt his reputation with me already, just and it's just the little things like that. And I'm not going to hold it against him per se, but people remember that. I'm always going to remember that about him now, even if we end up working together at some point. So
someone introduced a friend of theirs to me on LinkedIn, and hey, I thought you two should meet. He's going to enter this industry, blah blah blah. Answered back. 2 months later, 2 months later, he responds to that on LinkedIn. It's like, I mean, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know what you do.
It's
I know what I do.
Yeah, I mean, again, Andrew, you nailed it. Expectations. David, I love that you said set the expectation. Tell them how you're going to reach out next, and put it on your calendar. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. Put it on the calendar, and then go be a person of your word. I'm telling you, in today's world of so much noise and so much clutter, and people doing exactly what David and Andrew just said, you being a person of your word, you will gain so much trust so much faster. And we all know where sales come from, when they trust you. So effective messaging, small tweaks, some don'ts, a lot of do's. Hopefully this was beneficial. Real quick, I'm going to share my screen as we segue into some Q&A. Just real quick, we want to invite you, obviously, to next month. Next month in December, 2nd Friday, we are going to talk about setting up 2024 for success through a vision board, through choosing a word for the year, a word that's going to fuel you, that's going to pick you up and breathe life into you, and also a one-page business plan. Putting together your core values, what you're going after, a few goals that you commit to personally. We're going to put that together in an hour and a half in December. So scan the QR code on the screen and get registered for next month's monthly live podcast. And by the way, send us your questions throughout the month. It's right up there on the webinar banner. You can scan that QR code once you're over on Zoom registering, and that'll take you to the Jot form. Or you can shoot us an email as well with your questions, and we'll answer those live. So I'm going to stop sharing here. We're going to do some Q&A. We had a couple of questions sent in, and we kind of broke these down in 4 common denominators here. One is, how often is too often? We kind of addressed that today, guys, I feel. But why don't you guys both talk about, like, I think for me, there's different people There's different sequences I'm running, prospects, nurture. So there's going to be different cadence or different frequency for each of my sequences in sales. But why don't you guys talk about like how often is too often? The comment was, I don't want to bombard my prospective client.
Yeah. Well, Jeff Bajork made a post on LinkedIn this week that I love because he put in there like you don't want people to perceive you as a psychopath because you're all over it. And that would be, to me, like in my head, that would be like every 2 days or 3 days would probably be a little too much. I think as a general rule of thumb for me, a weekly, anywhere between 6 to like 6, 7, 8, 9 days, and just kind of alternating that gap, right, is good when it comes to really accelerating a sequence for a prospect. So for me, that's the timing that I feel comfortable with. And but I will add a caveat there. I've had times where we had a productive, we got a conversation rolling and someone was very clear about timing for them. And I think it's important to listen to that. And then I think most salespeople end up dropping the ball because someone's like, hey, can you circle back with me in a month? And then they don't, or they wait the 2 months like David said. So there have been times where I paused it and then had very effective results, picking right back up. Hey, it's been a month. You told me to reach back out, wanted to continue the conversation. Let's set up a brief visit, and it works very well. So until you get that though from somebody, I think a good week on average is good. David, what are your thoughts, man?
Well, my favorite answer to most questions is it just depends. Like if you've in prospecting, if you have A, B, and C prospects, you're going to treat them differently. Your C's you might nurture once a month, once a quarter. And other things can change. If you're in an environment, in an industry where government regulations are coming down and something has to happen by January 1st, I think that's a more heightened sense of, and we've even used that in past, with this legislation coming down and compliance having to happen. Hopefully you're talking to someone, if not, we would love to have a conversation. So a lot of it depends on the sense of urgency. If there's something around an event, if you've started 6 weeks in advance, so it really all depends. If it's event driven, which prospecting, events are a great way, whether it's a webinar or an in-person event, it's a great mechanism. People like one-to-many. If they're not ready to be actively in a sales process, I think that a one-to-many event, whether it's a webinar, a trade show, something like that. And so it just depends on the timing. You might want to escalate. If I start marketing to you, Andrew, for the largest industry convention and setting a meeting with you, I might start 8 weeks in advance and skip to the next one being 2 weeks later. And then as it gets closer, hey,
weekly,
it could be. So
yeah,
a lot of it depends. I think that, more than weekly is tricky.
Yeah.
When we've set up a lot of omni-channel cadences, email day 1, follow-up phone call day 6, we start staggering them out. We will normally do 6 or 7 touches in a 1 month period. Omni-channel, now that is 2 a week.
Yeah.
But one of them might be just viewing their LinkedIn profile.
Right.
If they're like me, which not everybody is, thank goodness. We talked about that earlier. I'm looking at LinkedIn every day with FOMO. Who's looking at my profile? Well, if you have sent me an email, left me a professional voicemail, now you can look at my profile. It's like, oh, Andrew Hooper looked at, maybe I should. Look, now, if you're sitting there in your profile holding up a fish and it's not a professional, I mean, that's a whole other. That's a whole other thing.
Andrew can hold up a fish. Andrew can hold up a fish on his professional profile and look professional. Trust me, he is a professional.
I look really good holding up a fish.
Now, me on the other hand, I'm not a professional fisherman. So, hey,
well,
David,
that little fish. I mean, it's come on.
Yeah, hold it real close to the camera, right, like this. Yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah. Just to put a cap on this one, I think that again, know your sequence. What are you running? Did they enter the arena? Did they sign up for your event? Did they come eat your food? Did they come sit in your class? I think you can be a little bit more aggressive. If they've never talked to you before, you need to be thoughtful. But I also think for professionally, I have coached a lot of salespeople, and I think getting people out of this mindset of once a month or at the next mixer or at the next association meeting, then I'll ping them after that. And it's just having the confidence to say, I have something of value. I have some ideas I want to share. I know I can help your business, and getting confident, and then doing a weekly cadence where the touches are differentiated across multiple channels. I think that is safe. If I send an email and then a week later send a phone call, and then a week later you receive something in the mail from me, and then a week later I DM you on social, that's a month, and that you didn't bombard them in one channel.
Yeah.
And that's a month. So don't get in your own head over it's too much and I'm going to tick them off. Like, where are you going to run them off to? Somebody who can't give as much value as you? Like, don't get out of your own head on that. But if you're going to do a daily or something, if you're in Silicon Valley selling tech or selling free tickets to go to Miami somewhere, just stay away from that. Be careful.
Even there, it's not. Yeah.
Let's answer a couple quick questions. December's
Yeah,
webinar is about setting 2024 for success. We'll do hopefully some start, stop, keep, one word personal mantra, maybe a mini business plan on what 24 is going to look like. The question above
Great
that
question,
from Cheryl, and Andrew, you
Yeah,
might know this. Are there words that that are auto spam filter
There you
catching?
go. Tim kind of put them. Tim dropped
Yep.
them in there, right? Like
There we
quite a
go.
few of them. Anything that's
Okay.
manipulative or like a false sense of urgency or like
Yep.
urgent or free promotion or stuff like that. Stay away from that.
Nice.
Again, just be honest about what your purpose of the email is. I find that that's the best policy in a subject line. And one other tip I have seen that works is Cheryl, funny. Yeah, no, don't be sleazy, Cheryl. You're as far from sleazy as it gets. So you're a professional's professional. So you don't have to worry about that. But I've also found success in putting like David, brief visit over coffee next week, ? So
Love that. Yeah.
If you put someone's name, I think it also signifies to them that you're not doing a mass drip. Like you're not doing a mass, and now with some of the AI and tech that they have the capability to do
But
that.
Andrew,
so that used to be more important, but
what if I go by Dave? You've already turned me off.
David,
What if I
I
call you
know
Andy?
don't, David,
Andy.
Hey, listen, someone called me Bud the other day, and I made it shocked me, so I made an Instagram video about it, and it kind of went viral. But
okay, Andy.
Yeah.
Do what's in their LinkedIn profile, and you should be okay. You should be safe.
Okay.
I usually use what's in their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. But David, that's a valid point. That is a valid point.
It is
Just
valid.
be careful.
You may not, their name might be Richard and they go by Dick. You never know, but don't assume.
Yes.
I always go by their given name, or Tim, you're smart. Put what's in their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
That's always good.
Andrew, too funny. All right, Cheryl, great question. Yes. So in full disclosure, I grabbed that off of a quick Google search, but needy, manipulative, sleazy, cheap. Stay away from those. And I think free is kind of the overall universal. Don't put free in a subject line. All right. So number 2, I'm going to read this one. So this was a very well thought out question. So how do you transition good interpersonal skills into actual leads, potential business, and meaningful and genuine relationships? I have no trouble talking with strangers or even irate clients. Kudos to you for that. But I do not know how to have the conversation of I'd love to do business with you outside of those words. Anything past that and it starts to feel false. Like I want something from them. So Andrew, like you've broached this gap. You've really coached some teams to this. David, you too. How would you answer that?
So there's a couple different scenarios there. So can I take them at kind of 2? So I heard good relationships and then dealing with irate customers.
I think the question was more around that was a background.
Good with that.
Okay.
Yeah, good with that. But how do I go with a prospect and just ask for I want to do business?
Okay, so if I'm with a prospect and we're good at the interpersonal, so we're at the networking, we're great at building relationship, we're great at understanding about them. I would say something like, hey Tim, it's been absolutely wonderful getting to know you, and over the last couple months, the time spent together is always uplifting to me, and I trust it is for you. Would it be too much to ask that we move into more of a business posture together?
It's good.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Andrew, yes, that's too much to ask.
So
I love that
would,
you asked that.
what would move it more? Yeah.
Would it be too much?
So
to
you
ask?
take it. Tim likes to challenge me on our podcast. He did that the other day when I was making a point, and it was fun. But yeah, you're right. If it is too much to ask, then why? Why would that be too much to ask? And kind of go down that path, because based on everything I'm seeing in the conversations we have, we seem like a perfect fit. You know, I feel like we're a perfect fit. What do you feel? And kind of go there. But you can ask, would it be too much to ask, or would it be crazy to think that we could do business together? The other thing,
Yeah,
it was in the question, David, you do business with me. So, but no, at the end of the day, if you feel that it's a natural progression and you really enjoy working with someone, chances are they feel the same way about you. Yeah. And the best policy is to use the Cook method and just ask for the business. What would it look like for us to work together? And if it's a good personal relationship and you're not sure how to bridge that gap, for me, sometimes it's listen, anything we do business wise together does not come into how we do personal. That's separate. You can kind of address that up front in my opinion, and say, what we do in business is not going to ever come into our personal side that we have here. But I think based on the great relationship we have, we could do a lot of good things together over here. What are your thoughts? And just get them speaking about it, right? So, those are my two cents.
I love the open, I love it. And I love the open-ended question. I also love how you asked, and I was jesting with you, because it would be hard to say, yes, Andrew, it would be too much to ask. It's hard to say, no, it's actually not too much to ask. I thought the same thing. I thought you never ask, you never know. So ask the open-ended question, change the asking for business into an open. What would it look like? Would it be too much to ask? But I love, Andrew, I think the bridge you gave us is pretty powerful. I feel a really good fit. I enjoy the things we've worked on. And sometimes in our industry, Andrew, you already have worked with this person, maybe on an association. Maybe you've already been around the industry. Maybe you went and did a habitat build together. There are so many opportunities to say, I enjoy you. What would it take to do business together?
That's it right there. That's magic. And then to the piece too, because I think sometimes we get looped into a scenario. I know in our industry, Tim, people deal with people who aren't necessarily the referring party or part of the transaction a lot. And there might be a tough situation that you've solved because maybe another company messed up and you had to come in and fix it. When there's been an irate situation you fixed, that to me is also a huge opportunity to ask for business, because it says, listen, hey, Tim, this was very unfortunate that happened to you. I will say, though, that working with you to fix this has been enjoyable. I've enjoyed working with you, and I don't want to see you having this continue to happen. I'd love to be the point person. I'd love to quarterback these types of deals for you so that you don't run into these similar types of roadblocks moving forward. What would that look like? What would that posture look like? Because you don't deserve to deal with this. So if you're dealing with some of those situations where it's someone in the party who had a bad experience, that's how you bridge it without bashing the competition. You're too good to have to deal with these problems, and I'd love to be quarterbacking it for you, because clearly I just demonstrated I know how, and I can do that very well for you, right? And then you can build your reputation there. So
Andrew always makes it look so easy, David. And then the real world happens. I'm like, wait, Andrew, what did you say?
So tell people you want to. I'm not. This is real world. I have told more people I'd like to quarterback for them. I've told more people, hey, I would love to be the quarterback for you on some of this stuff. What would that look like? I did this back in the banking days. I did this back. You're dealing with this over here. You shouldn't have to. Let me quarterback it for you.
I've watched him do that. I'm joshing a little bit, guys, because that's what you might be thinking. Wow, that sounds so good. It sounds so good because Andrew's done this over and over, and he's practiced it. And by the way, we practice as a team. We practice how to say this as a team. So I would challenge you as a sales trainer, get with your team on some of these. How do you ask for the business moments? Hear from them how they ask, and then circulate that, practice together. And then it starts becoming more of a natural ask. And there's, Andrew, I love that you said there are plenty of opportunities in our business for that tee up to happen. So look for those. Great. And by the way, that might have been the question of the month. That might get the gold bow, the first place. I'm kidding a little bit, but great question. Thank you for sending it in. Quick question here as we're
I
coming
would
up
have
on time. But
now just
go
another.
ahead, David, please.
I would have answered that a different way. What would it
Wait,
take for
jump
me to
in.
earn your business? What would it take for me to earn your business?
There you go.
That's another.
So that's just another.
I'm going to pause here because I'm glad you jumped in. The earn word. I'm sorry. I was trying to think. The word earn is powerful. Can I get your next deal? Will you send me your next deal? Will you, whatever? What would it take to earn? Now, Andrew is, I believe, sharing more about you already did some level of business and you're looking for more, or maybe you help them solve something that another
or you just have a good relationship. Yeah, you already know them. Yeah, you already know them. Yeah.
So moving into several postures here, but David, I think too, when you maybe don't know somebody that well, so maybe somebody's on the call thinking, I don't know that person that well. Yeah. I don't necessarily know if I enjoy them yet. I think, David, that line is one of the better, if you don't know somebody, to say, hey, what would it take to earn your business? That's another open-ended. And I think the earn plants a seed that you're going to work hard for them because they don't know you that well yet. So thank you, David. Great, another option.
You're welcome, Tim.
Ooh.
Is a direct message on social media a viable way to reach out to a prospect? We get this often. I think more times than not, we're finding people are. And Andrew, I know we've had people send us their like snapshots of direct messages. So first and foremost, thank you for the trust in that. And I know we've coached people again on being more concise. But yes, I would answer this one and hear from you guys. I would say yes, 100% viable. I'm just not going to make it my first. I'm going to reach out in a more professional email or video email, and then the social DM is going to be number 3 or 4 in my sequence. What do you guys think?
LinkedIn.
I'll defer to Andrew because I don't.
You don't do it?
Play in this space. No,
not at all. You should, David. You have the face for it.
Possible face for radio.
Stop.
The
I
question
think
earlier was. No, I don't. I'm a big separation of church and state, and so
okay.
I kind of keep my social media, with the exception of LinkedIn, and I've done a lot of LinkedIn prospecting. We don't have time for that, but going right to CEOs in a 3 sequence.
Well,
I don't do a lot.
First, Microsoft is okay with us calling LinkedIn social media now. They kind of want to be and they are right now. And a lot of times with the engagement. So Andrew, take it away, man.
LinkedIn, it's expected and normal to reach out. So go ham on LinkedIn. First communication, second, third, I don't care. It's totally fine. With other platforms, I'm very careful understanding how I personally might be perceived. So you need to look at how you and what's on your page and who you're reaching out to, how that could be. Worst case scenario, if I'm on Instagram reaching out, how could that be perceived and how am I reaching out? What am I saying?
Yeah.
So I stay away from Instagram, but I think on like a Facebook, I know in our industry, a lot of people are on Facebook. We connect, we see what's going on in each other's lives. I think as a part of a sequence with somebody, if you've maybe met them at a networking event, now you're sequencing them, you're trying to get a meeting, they've accepted a friend request on Facebook and you see that they did something cool, maybe a fundraiser or something like that, or a kid's birthday or a child's wedding or something, I've sent DMs just congratulating them on that or whatever I've seen, or, hey, that trip you took looked pretty cool, or I'll just use even comments. But it's not around sales. It's more around just reinforcing who I am in the relationship.
Yeah.
So I kind of keep sales to phone, video, LinkedIn, email, and then the relationship piece of the sequence is DM, comments, some of that. So that's just my personal preference. Now, it plays different because I've talked to some real estate agents and they DM people on Instagram are successful all the time. Again, who you are and who you're reaching out to matters there. I think you just got to be, in today's world, careful about how you could come across reaching out to someone who doesn't know you yet on certain social media platforms.
Yep. I agree. I think too, like for instance, on Facebook, I have a sales energy for sales Facebook group. Andrew, you're in there. David's in there. So oftentimes after I've connected with somebody and maybe I've sent them a happy birthday message. And by the way, it's just happy birthday. It's not happy birthday. And oh, by the way, we should connect and have coffee because I want to meet. Don't make it about them and just be social. Facebook is, by the way, supposed to just be kind of social. But if there's a group, I might at some point shoot them a message and say, hey, feel free to check out the Energy for Sales Facebook group. Would love to have you in there. It's just nothing but sales motivation. And so, and then I'll see them join. So again, if it's on the same platform and you're kind of pulling them into something there, feel free. I think they understand that's the community. You're playing in that community space. LinkedIn, to be expected. But yeah, so good stuff there, guys. DMs, use it. Just think about how you like, again, back to how we started this, how you like to be messaged on DMs.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, and we went over a lot of this today, so I feel like we already answered this one. But if you guys, as we end here, have any other tricks up your sleeve, somebody said, I've tried everything. Are there any tricks up your sleeves in getting a lead to respond?
Hold on.
Do you have one? Oh, that was pretty good, actually. Again, if you've tried all the omni channels, I mean, David, any tricks up your sleeve, man? Have you ever just
well, when I saw
done a
the
bad
question,
signal?
one of the things I teach is, because people get ghosted all the time, so they say, just not understanding the timing, like when should you hear back from someone? Like if you haven't set the next step when you have them on the calendar, a definitive next step, it's tricky. If you don't understand their timing for decision or response, you feel ghosted, and you're really not, because you haven't understood. So it's a tricky game. I know that wasn't the question, but that wasn't the answer someone is looking for. But so let's say we didn't do any of that stuff. We didn't do well. Sometimes giving a little bit of space, but again, as I do in some of our sequences, most of our sequences, when I stop, I'm going to let them know, I've reached out a few times. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to connect. If now's not the right time, or if you're not the right person, I'm going to leave you alone for a while. Sometimes you just have to back off.
Yeah.
But that it builds, again, when you have them, you have to set a concrete, definitive next step on the calendar. What's next, because it's tough. Because once a buyer has all the information they need, they don't need us anymore.
Yeah.
And they have all the power.
And as far as a trick, I don't love the word trick. I like tips and best practices. That's a personal foible, but this is a trick, if you will. Here's a good little trick for you, because this is a little bit more.
I like treats.
It is a treat. It's actually a treat, Tim. It is a treat. It's actually a treat that I'm going to talk about here. So here's a treat for you. So if it's someone you really, 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 really want to talk to, you can't scale this across everybody, but you're running a sequence. This is where Tim and I have effectively deployed a little bit more of the experiential marketing piece. And that could be a book with a handwritten note, or this could be a gift personalized to them, something about them. It's just not a crazy gift, but something that's small. So you like that, Tim? 5 realies, right? So this is a little bit of a treat. So it's fun to do, because you will most normally receive a response if you give something that's just very thoughtful, as a, hey, I would love to meet you. I've been trying to, could we? And, I'm thinking of you. So that, again, it's more of a trick to me, because it is a little bit of like you're trying to induce a response with something, which at a certain level, it's also, people are like, well, Andrew, that's a little manipulative. I don't think so, because you have to put time, thought, and effort into putting something together for somebody. You got to make a trip over to the office to drop it off. Like, if you're doing something like that, you're actually taking the time because you care and you really want to, and you really, really believe that you'll be a great fit working with this person. So that's one way to get a good lead to respond. Tim, you've done books.
I think even just a handwritten note. I mean,
that too.
Start there. For me, it's, again, the AAV. Always add value. So whether they ever pick up the phone or not, did what I put in the mail to them add value? Am I going to put donuts? Am I going to go drop donuts? Hope to get a meeting with you? No, that didn't add value. That just added weight. It's
Can
like,
I add
no,
one
I'm
thing there, actually,
book.
Tim? Can I challenge you, since you challenged me? Because Scott Stratton, who's an amazing speaker, he tells a story how he got his real estate agent. His real estate agent heard him talking in a podcast about how he loved this brand of donuts from Las Vegas, and he actually went and got that brand of donuts and had them delivered to his door.
Well,
so
that was valuable to him.
If you hear something that is donut related, then go do it. So Tim, I know you hate donuts. Tim has a mission, but look at him; he's so chiseled. He hates.
I don't.
donuts. Look at me.
$5
I love
in
donuts.
Nashville. 5 daughters in Nashville all day long. But
I love it.
To your point though, he heard and he went and got him. So it was, he heard something that he valued and it happened to be donuts. So again, we don't always have that insight. So just think more again, generically than what might be valued. So books just resonate with me. I'm in a lot of masterminds. I think leaders like the next book coming out. So I try to stay on trend. But again, that's my thing. Make it your thing. Maybe you have a little book you wrote. Maybe you have a little something you created and that's your thing. But I think, Andrew, to your point, that's the treat. That's the little treat up our sleeve. So you can pull that one out. That's a Hail Mary. And
or just send them some good old propaganda, send them some.
There you go.
Some sweat. I'm joking. Don't do that.
David, why don't you drop the golden microphone today, brother? I know we've heard a lot. How would you wrap like effective sales messaging, man?
Just concise, brief, genuine. Something that would attract you if your buyer is like you.
It's lovely. It's lovely.
Not a golden mic. It was a silver mic. Andrew's got the golden mic. He's big hoop.
Golden microphone. Hey, before we let everybody go, if you are an F&F agent, or if you're not an F&F agent yet, and you are considering, this is where Andrew and I call home for a reason. And in January, we are hosting our agents in Columbia, Maryland, and in Richmond, Virginia. Hop over to the fnfenergize.com website, get registered. But just want to put that here at the end. We're going to be bringing nothing but sales mindset and strategy to go into 2024 supercharged. All right, especially in this industry of real estate and title. It's going to be a tough. I can't talk. I need more coffee. Tough 12 months. That's a tongue twister. So join us at the Energize Conference.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on today. And we will see you in December.
Thank you, Tim and David. Thank you all. See ya.